get so mad, there's no controlling me. My thoughts get so bad, I'm like, oh God, here goes. I lost all feeling from my head to my toes. You said some shit that I can't let go, so just stay tuned for the rest of the show.
Thank you for joining me, Caroline. It's an absolute pleasure to get some time to talk through some of the things, some of the conversations we've had when we met face to face. So thank you so much for your time and for joining me. Can I get you to introduce yourself?
Of course. So firstly, thank you for having me. My name is Caroline Jessamy Gibbs, and I am Global Client Services Manager at Kinley. I've been with the company for 7 years. So yeah, I have seen a lot of changes, and I'm still quite excited about what we deliver. I'm quite enthusiastic about what's to come, especially with a number of ERGs coming into play and really focusing on people and where we are as a culture and a community.
Brilliant. And that's how we got talking.
Yes.
We were talking about DEI initiatives, and actually I think what we really agreed on quite passionately was that there's a lot of talk but not much action. So given that it is going to be Black History Month, and here we go again, you know, it's an annual thing. What does Black History Month mean to you?
So I have to start this conversation and be really open and honest here. I think for me, I grew up and my formative years were spent in Barbados. And so having the need to speak about Black wasn't something that we needed to do because it was embedded in our way of life and in our curriculum. Like, we had to study Black history. We had to study the rebellions of our forefathers. We had to study. So yes, there was Shakespeare, absolutely, but we also had Nobel Prize winners within the Caribbean, Edward Camus Brathwaite, to name just one person, and many, many more. So we've had a wealth of people with knowledge and experience that were embedded in our curriculum. So we didn't.
You had the role models.
Black History Month was not a thing. It's not a thing in the Caribbean. Within the UK, and I guess through parenthood, I'm getting to experience through my kids why it is so important to have Black History Month, and to make sure that their curriculum pays homage to, includes that alternative perspective of a Black writer, a Black artist, so that they can see themselves in the things that they're studying, and that level of pride and worth is there from the beginning. Because
Yeah.
you know, so many times I've been to so many parents teachers associations, and we've all sat down, and there's this point in every little girl or every little boy's life that they come home and go like, oh, why isn't my hair straight? Why is my hair curly? And that speaks volumes to what we are not exposing them to, and where we do need to open up their perspective on world, life, culture, history.
And it's contribution for me, and acknowledging contribution is important on every level for everybody. What about in terms of that feeling of belonging and feeling that you fit in where you work? What has that felt like over the years for you?
So I think I've moved from a phase of being unconscious in the terms of I was comfortable with keeping the status quo as it was, because I I felt like there was so much trauma to unpack to get to a stage of consciousness. But I think, like most people, the murder of George Floyd resonated deeply with me. And I felt compelled to act, to make people aware that racism in the workplace, racism in society, racism in the UK does exist. And that, you know, as a society, we have a lot to benefit if we can all work together to eradicate racism. So yeah, and so within that space of moving from unconscious to conscious, I've been very lucky within Kinley in that I've had a number of allies who supported from the beginning, who listened, did the research, put in the work, and was willing to be part of a group talking about racism and their perspective from that of a white person, their perspective from a position of privilege where they did not have to think about. And it's the simple things like, you know, two people walking down the street, and or the one that I still experience every day is, you know, you get in the tube, and someone sits next to you, and all of a sudden you see them like really tightly engaged with their purse, and you're like, but can't you see that I've got my own, and that my own is, and so that it goes back to that safety net of, if you dress a certain way, if I wear a certain brand of clothing, then people wouldn't make that assumptions of me. They wouldn't see my color before they see my clothes or my shoes. So you try to cover it up, but really and truly, you can't. It's how we exist in this space. And so getting comfortable with the uncomfortable has become something that I try to lead and impress upon my teams. I am very, very passionate about awareness of racism at work, awareness in society, and really creating that safe space that people can talk about their experiences and ask questions. Not everyone is going to get it right. So be open to learning, but understand that within that learning space, you might feel uncomfortable. But the work is you taking that away and asking yourself, why does this make me uncomfortable? What about this makes me uncomfortable?
What would you so just holding on to that incident, so George Floyd, obviously it was a few years ago, early lockdown. What was it about that particular incident that made you kind of think, right, it's enough? And not up until, you know, what was it? I'm just interested to know what switched for you.
I think the lack of humanness of it really hit me to my core. The fact that, you know, all of these people could stand there, that policeman could just watch the life leave his body and be more concerned with getting him to prison than valuing his life. So value for life, I think I
think when something is so graphic as well, and there was video evidence and everything, it hits home in a very different way to when you read an article, or you know, it's not that you don't know that these things are happening all the time, but I think you can't
not see it.
You can't unsee it, right?
You can't unsee it. You absolutely could not unsee it. And I remember reading when the trial was happening a couple of years ago, I think last year, the young lady who took the video, she said that she felt so guilty about the filming, because it felt so personal and private, that moment that he had where he was begging for his life, that she was like, I don't feel right videoing this, but if I don't, people won't believe. I have to have this evidence so that people believe that this does happen, that this does exist, that I am not exaggerating, that this is the truth.
And there's been so many since then, right? That there's so many more videos and so much more footage. Bringing it back to London, and I know we've talked about stop and search, and you know, both our children have experienced that, and so, and obviously I think yours was particularly traumatic. Looking at the case, it's just recently gone to court, where two athletes, so one who a couple, so one who represented Portugal, he represents Portugal, she represents Great Britain, athletics, were stopped on the way home, stopped outside their house, and I found the footage of that really difficult, really difficult to watch, because I also know it's an everyday occurrence for people because of their colour. And I think in court, I think she was asked, what could your husband do in terms of his driving? How could he improve his driving? Or, you know, they were talking about how he'd been stopped several times. How could he adjust his driving pattern, or what could he do differently to not be stopped? And she just gave them the straightest answer, which was, he can't change the color of his skin. And I wonder how many people go through that and then they don't take it to work, whether it's they've gone through it, their children have gone through it, their loved ones, their friends or whoever have gone through it. And then they go to work and have to pretend like nothing's wrong, and they're fully related and nothing's happened. How do you process that? Because I find that really hard. And I found this week particularly hard.
It is hard to process. It is hard to look back at these examples, particularly where you've got visual evidence to say that this wasn't racism, that you didn't stop because they were Black and in a nice car. I've got many friends who've been stopped because they have nice things, they've worked hard, and they've got nice Benz, Mercedes, Telsas, and they're stopped. And I think it's the stop and search hits on such an emotional level. And I'll start first with, you know, I could say to I could bring thousands of Black people together, and I could say the word, the talk, and each and every one of those individuals will know what I am referring to. You ask that same question to a group of white individuals, and they would have no idea what that means, what that refers to, how we have to sit our kids down and give them guidelines for communicating with police when, not if, when they are stopped.
Yeah.
And I think in the instance with Bianca, It was particularly hard to see when she was there pleading, I just want to go with my child.
And the
I
child's
just
in the
need to go
car.
back to my child. And all the policemen think someone's going to be with them.
Yeah.
And they're handcuffing her in front of her child.
And in front of their home, like in
And
front
in
of
front of
their
their
neighbors.
home.
And, you know, and everybody immediately says, well, there's no smoke without fire. But I'm sorry, sometimes there is.
I think if you look at the records for the stop and search and how they're done, I think there's a lot to be said for the training of the teams that carry out these stop and search. And I think the police would like to say that they don't have a quota, but they do have a quota. They do have a quota of people that they have to stop and search to say that they've done X, Y, and Z. And I think when you stop someone for suspicious activity, and you're not able to articulate to that person what that activity is, you're not able to present any evidence, then after a while, it's what are we doing? What are we doing?
It just, I think for me, the thing that upset me the most about that particular video was when, you know, when she said he can't change the color of his skin. That really hit the nail on the head for anyone, and for all people of color, that like you said earlier, what would it take to not make a judgment on someone's skin color before everything else, before you've even spoken to the person? You know, what will it take for us to get there? Will we ever get there? I don't know.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.